It brings me no joy.
No joy. No
to
joy
report that the world has lost a beautiful ape.
One of the most beautiful apes, really.
One of the most beautiful apes. Where this is an in memoriam for Kanzi the bonobo.
Kanzi, gone too soon.
Smoke him if you got him, boys.
Smoke him if you got
Smoke
him.
him if you got him.
It's really I'm
gonna miss that little rascal.
I think this is Austin's fault.
I also think that this is definitely Austin's fault.
I think this is Austin's death curse visiting Kanzi as one.
I don't want to think.
I think it's the death curse because
I don't want to think of that.
every time something good almost happens to you, someone dies. Welcome to episode 74 of Gorilla Radio Show.
Oh my god, your unemployment is doing great things for this podcast.
Dude, I painted... I don't know if you can see. You know these shitty-ass shelves that are always behind me? I repainted them. I just be doing shit.
Do you own those shelves, or...?
Nope.
Okay.
I went downstairs, I knocked on a landlord's door, I went, "You got paint?" And he went, "Yeah." I went, "Let me have it. I'm going to repaint the shelves in my kitchen." And he went, "Okay." And so that's what I did yesterday.
Okay. Real
I have
shit.
deep cleaned the floors, the walls, the fucking ceiling. I've cleaned everything. I'm out of shit to do already.
He's too productive.
And I emailed the HR lady at my new job today, on Friday afternoon. I emailed her. I was like, "Hey, any way I can start sooner? Cause I got nothing else to do." And she's like, "Nah." She was like, "We still haven't ordered your computer yet." She was like, "We won't ship that to you till the end of this week." I got another 2 weeks of just jacking off, having a beer. I've perfected making Kraft mac and cheese because I ain't got a... Jaden goes to work,
you should
got
learn...
You got all this free time and you're not cooking yourself real meals? You're eating Kraft mac and cheese?
No, I'll be cooking real meals, but I'll have a Kraft mac and cheese for lunch.
True.
Well, Greg, this would be a perfect time to learn Kanzi's language. What do they call it? The
lexigrams? Also, it's Yerky. It's, what is it called? Yerk something. It's in the air. Yerkish. I wrote episode notes. Clearly you didn't read them, you bitch.
No, I just forgot the name. You should learn his lexigram language in his honor.
I should make my own lexigram like
You know what would be a really cool hold on. Pull up the Kanzi lexigram. We should get
When you said what would be a really cool idea, I thought you were gonna say we should put Greg in an enclosure and make him talk with lexigrams.
Well, yes, but I also think you could get the lexigram for grape tattooed on you. You know, in memory of Kanzi's favorite word. Oh, Kanzi has his name there as a lexigram too. That's really cool.
Yeah, Kanzi's got his own. He's
Austin?
like Prince.
There's an Austin lexigram. You should get that.
Wait, what? There is?
Yeah, there's an Austin lexigram next to Kanzi.
No way.
Who's Austin?
Who's Austin?
We gotta ask
Probably a researcher. Also, it's Robert Austin or Rachel Austin is one of the researchers.
Dude, oh my god, that's a perfect tattoo actually.
Gully Gusher? You should get the Gully Gusher.
Dude, I didn't know Kanzi had a word for me.
That's crazy.
Dude, I need to get this tattooed on me, unironically.
Right now, let's go right now.
Let's go right now. Let's go right now.
We're gonna go to Brevard Court. We're gonna get it done right now.
Sue's office. Go do it.
Sue's office is cute.
Tomato.
Yeah, we're looking at Kanzi's little lexigram here.
We will include a link to this part of the...
I like that yes is just a Y.
Yeah.
I like that sleep is just the word sleep.
I like that burrito is there. And it's
just burrito in Comic Sans. Why did he know the word for burrito? What was he requesting?
He was fat as fuck, remember?
Yeah, so that is one thing we were going to discuss with... I don't know if you guys heard the bonus episode. If you're subscribed to our Patreon, I would sure hope you did. But at the very end, I talked about how we were going to interview Kanzi in person. And in the process of emailing back and forth with the Ape Initiative people, he died.
Yeah.
While we were emailing back and forth, he died.
He died on the day we were going to record.
The day we were going to record,
social media manager.
Yeah, we were going to record a preemptive interview with, the social media lady, and he died.
Yep.
Moments before the recording started.
You know, it's really... I think it would have been too powerful. If you had put the three of us on the other side of a Zoom call from Kanzi, I don't think we would have been able to make a funny episode ever again.
We were going to be in the same room with Kanzi.
I know. We were going to go there. Can you imagine? We'd be too strong. We would never make a funny episode again. We'd be super serious because I think that would change our lives.
I think it would change our lives. We could still meet Kanzi's son, maybe. I'm gonna be honest. I think
Kanzi was fucking.
What is that lexigram? What does that mean?
Perrier?
Yeah, what does that mean?
He drank
Don't know what
sparkling water.
Perrier is?
I don't
He drank.
actually.
Kanzi liked sparkling water.
Real insight into just how poor Austin is.
He's
doesn't
never
know
heard
what
of
Perrier
sparkling
water is.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Kanzi
He
liked
had a-
sparkling water.
he had a
I read
Kool-Aid
so
button?
many fucking articles about Kanzi today.
Oh, I need that Jello button, man.
And I need the Jello button.
You need a button that says fucking HRT.
I'd like to I'd like to meet Kanzi's son. I think he's the bonobo that they speculate has autism, which is cool.
Oh, you would love... You guys would get along, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
it
think
takes
we
is
get along.
one generation of one parent being addicted to a screen. Autism.
This is what RFK Jr. is talking about.
Oh,
Wait. That's
I
language.
had some,
I like
I
how
had
some of them
actual
are
fucking
like
notes
actual
for
like
this shit.
kanji, like swimming pool. Is that just the actual kanji for swimming pool?
I think so,
This was
yeah.
not created by Japanese people.
No,
It's a series. It's not kanji. There are shapes and colors,
Yeah, but
and the
some of them are
combination
very
of shapes
clearly,
on
like,
layers.
kanji adjacent like.
The
I think that's
lexigram gets more and
that's
more like fucking
convergent.
insane as it goes
I think
on.
that's
But
more
it's-
convergent evolution than anything else because there's only so many shapes.
Well, scroll down and go. To...
I went through the list.
Like the
Look,
one
okay,
for hamburger,
let-
like top line of the first one, hamburger. That is just kanji. That is not a. That is a actual. I'm sure that is the actual image for word for hamburger.
That's what they're calling me.
So true. I can't find the one for grape. Actually, am I stupid?
Yeah, I wonder where the grape.
He wants grape. I
Yeah,
want grape,
he's
give grape.
always asking for
I
grapes.
want grape. Give me grape. Give
So
me grape,
we've
give me
talked
grape.
briefly about Kanzi on this podcast before.
I think especially when we were doing our big episode about like language and is God
Yeah, that was like
real?
our first serious episode.
Crazy fucking episode.
It was a good one though, but that is what
It
the
was a
episode was
great one.
about.
we were all amateurs, but
So I did want to. I'm just going to skip around in the notes. I do want to ask you, Austin, with the death of Kanzi, what does this mean for primate research? Are there any other promising great apes who have this kind of propensity to not only use communication in a way we can understand, but the tool use that Kanzi showed and the fact that Kanzi kind of learned the lexicograms of his own volition. He didn't have to be necessarily trained. He took this up himself, based on observation. Are there any other apes like that who are still alive?
so I believe here's the problem. Some opinions on the matter are it might be for the best that Kanzi is the last trained speaking ape because if you know anything about Kanzi's early life, they, a lot of excessive anthropomorphization, really bad dietary practices, and a lot of, I won't say coercion in the sense that something was being held against him, but a lot of
They were leading him.
Yeah, they were leading him to perform certain behaviors, and that created maybe a once-in-a-lifetime unique ape, but let me see. Does Tico use the lexigram? Have you read about that?
No idea.
Let's see. Okay, so according to the Ape Initiative website, he understands many spoken words, and he will use the lexigram.
Okay, and Tico is Kanzi's child, right?
Yeah, he was born in 2010. Wait. Oh, no, sorry. Tico, he's
Kanzi's nephew.
He's Kanzi's nephew. Oh my god, he was an uncle.
Oh,
The world lost another uncle.
oh, yeah. There's only so many uncles out there. Call up your uncle today. Tell him how much you cherish him.
R.I.P. Unc.
Buy a pack
Rest
of
in
cigarettes
peace,
off him.
Unc.
Buy a cig off him.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, one of the things we talked about when we were talking about Kanzi and these kind of talking apes, quote unquote talking apes, is something that we try very hard to avoid on the show and something we try very hard to, warn against. And that's the anthropomorphization of apes, making them more human than they are. it gets in the way of understanding who they are as the things they are, because they're not human beings. They're little monkey guys, and they have different priorities, and they have different ways of seeing the world.
Right.
And when we try to cram their experiences and the way they exist into a model that we utilize, it gets in the way of like a deeper or more accurate understanding of their whole deal. So yeah, I do think with Kanzi's passing, we've entered an age where we no longer have many of our notable talking apes. Like Noam Chomsky is dead.
Noam Chomsky's dead. Coco's dead.
Coco's dead.
And honestly,
Kanzi might have actually been the last really speech focused from that era.
Yeah,
I just like to say right now, I feel like Master Oogway passing away in the cherry blossoms. I've trained you so well. I don't even have to. I have no comments to add on that statement. But but yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to try to ask any more apes to do language projects because we've sort of
we've solved the problem. We answered the question.
We've answered that question.
The question has been answered.
The answer was grape.
Give
grape.
Grape.
Give grape.
Please
Give me
grape.
orange. You give me orange. Eat now. Give me orange. Eat.
R.I.P. Nim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question, I think. Then I guess here's another question I got for you. So, Kanzi was clearly special, and it sits in this special group of a very few great apes who either had some sort of innate capacity to learn this stuff. Or were trained in such a way that they were able to grasp it. But in terms of bonobos, right? Kanzi is a bonobo. In terms of bonobos, does Kanzi's kind of what seems to be one-off intelligence, does that kind of speak to what the majority of bonobos could be like if they were in an environment where all their needs are met and they don't have to waste energy, sourcing food and, keeping themselves safe from predators, things like that? Do they have kind of this capacity to, evolve in kind of a forced environment? Kanzi used stone tools. He was shown how to create them, but then he did just continue to reproduce and iterate on that for the rest of his life. It does seem like if they're in an environment where their needs are met and they don't need to, spend time looking for food, they don't need to really spend time keeping themselves safe, there's a much lower chance of them getting ill. Is there kind of a rubber band there in terms of their intelligence that if it doesn't have to be stretched doing all those things, they can learn more?
Right. So, I mean, partially there's constraints based on just their actual evolutionary biology. They took a different path than humans. They put all of their sort of metabolic energy into the more physical functions that great apes are required to use in the wild. But my views on this have evolved a bit, and part of that is I learned something that was super interesting at the conference that I went to, which I'll talk about, because this sets me up for a lot of interesting conversations regarding that. But just the change in environment can do so much, and we've talked before about a single chimp being taught to use stone tools in the wild to crack open nuts or fruits or something like that. We see that it begins to spread sort of locationally, outward from wherever that chimp is in the wild, where other chimps in his social group will start using that because they see it's a strategy that works, even if it's not something that was evolved independently. So it's hard to say, is what made humans unique the fact that we came up with this completely independently? Because if so, I'm pretty sure capuchins have come up with that independently. Or, what is the boundary of where being put in a specific environment with all your needs met, being taken care of, where you can sort of experiment with technology, how far does that bring an ape? And I think the language experiments tried pushing the boundaries of that and found pretty clear brick wall where you try to force apes to become human and do human-like behaviors. It can only go so far because that's just not what they're built for. But there is so much that they're capable of that it just doesn't seem like they're capable of doing, or it's not something that's super important to the apes. Just because of the circumstances of their birth and their biology, they don't really have any reason to be doing this unless you put them in an environment where they are rewarded explicitly for doing that. In which case, it shows that they do have that capability in some sense. And I don't know, it's very interesting. Like you said, Kanzi's mother was the one being taught to use this lexigram language, and Kanzi picked up on it as an interesting, I'm assuming as an interesting way of getting food from observing his mother. And that sort of reminds me of one person at one of the conferences I went to did this experiment where they wanted to test why certain apes in zoos were getting addicted to screen time, and if, they could replicate that as a sort of stand-in for, the effects of humans getting addicted to screen time. We talked about, the gorilla at the Lincoln Park Zoo that got addicted to zoogoers showing him their phone. So what this experiment did was essentially put an iPad in their enclosure and just, waited to see what they would do with it. And they all ignored it because no one was telling them that the iPad was an interesting thing to be looking at or doing. So, a big part of, and there's, ape sanctuaries who just do enrichment by, handing their chimpanzees an iPad and having them play, a bubble popping game. But the only reason they're doing that is because it's been indicated that is an object of interest.
And they might get a juice reward after.
Yeah, and great apes are, they're referential learners, if that makes sense. They see...
Monkey see,
monkey do. Literally. It's literally monkey see, monkey do.
They're visual learners, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there was this...
I hate to cut you off, but you are ing a lot like an Obama speech, so I'm going to ask you another question.
Yeah,
now,
sorry.
So you don't have to keep riffing.
I'll cut all the uhs out in the
You should
editing.
And you should release all the uhs as its own track.
Yeah.
So I think my question, maybe more so, is we now that we understand that yes, they're referential learners. If they're put in an environment where they need to do a certain thing to what in their minds is to continue to survive. Obviously, there was at some point in humans' past evolution, there was a bottleneck or some sort of evolutionary pressure that required that we use technology or we use our minds more to solve some sort of evolutionary problem rather than, physical strength or being able to move rapidly. So I guess if you're a bonobo, right? You're in this environment. Maybe a twofold question, what is the end goal of the researchers? What are they trying to achieve, I think, maybe in a more long-term way? And then, the second part of that is, if we were to make them, give them these tools, we are artificially creating an environment where the evolutionary pressure says use your mind to succeed. Would that converge in evolution not just be we recreate people in some way? If we were to do this generationally, it is going to make them smarter. It is going to make the evolutionary pressures on them, even if they're artificial, put more energy into their minds because that's what's working for generations prior. So if they can think and solve a thinking problem, they will thrive.
I think the only way that happens is we start killing all the apes who do bad at the tests.
No.
That's the thing.
Well, in
a
literal sense, maybe.
Yeah, this only happens. This only happens if we got all the apes in captivity, right? And the thing is, when we have apes in captivity, we have a lot of ethical standards, ethical procedures that are kind of designed to stop that from happening, to stop us from doing eugenics, right? Just as a principle. In the industry, in the scientific community, we look down upon eugenics these days.
Yeah.
How long that will be true, nobody can say.
We don't typically do ape eugenics. We do breeding of apes in captivity, so we would be, but we aren't selecting for apes that are doing good at the tests. Nobody's doing this. I suppose you could maybe make an argument that it might happen accidentally if we gave millions of years of sustaining Kanzi's family tree.
Well, I'm not
maybe,
saying
but,
it's not
like,
saying it's
And it
specific
would
to
need
Kanzi.
these institutions would need to exist over the same amount of scale that human evolution existed on.
I get.
Which
How
is
long
so
evolutionarily
huge.
do you think it took for humans to go from no language to language?
Well, we only developed
that's
language about 300,000 years ago, if I recall correctly.
The thing about language in humans is that it's
That's
Well,
doable,
like, but I'm
right?
saying you
That
can
is-
condense that art.
okay. We're gonna establish
No,
the
but
new
what I'm
empire
saying is
in
that
order
could be
to.
artificially condensed. It took 300,000 years in nature with humans spread out across vast distances, sometimes in very small groups where complex communication is not necessarily needed. But like, if you could concentrate that, what if you got that down to 3,000 years and then they could talk?
I think the problem is that we aren't necessarily. It's hard to say if we're like creating the same environmental pressures that created human language emergence, because
Well, obviously
We
not.
don't really know.
we're
exactly
just
what they were.
asking them to conform to what we think we want them to do. But like in their minds, for as far as we know, they're just pressing the button so that we give them grapes. So it's hard to say if we're faithfully recreating a sort of environmental pressure that would actually like work. But there is like cultural learning. Like there is, I've used this example several times, I'm pretty sure, but like the elephants where, you know, if poachers wipe out a huge group of elephants, then they lose like cultural memories, like where, you know, not the burial sites, but like where previous elephants died.
Where
They lose
XYZ
memory of watering
watering
holes,
yeah.
for example.
With losing
There's people
recipes.
dying out here who've never died before.
Yeah.
But like, do you think that kind of puts it like they are capable of like, you know, intergenerational learning? A lot of animals are. We don't necessarily see them getting smarter over time, although I do think maybe we are a bit.
We've only been doing this for a few generations.
Yeah, not only have we only been doing it for a few generations, so we're very short-sighted in that way, but also we haven't been around that long, like as complex beings.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean,
you know, even if like, you know, fucking crows and ravens are smart as shit,
Right.
but like they were probably dumber, you know, at some point previous.
I mean,
They're getting
I-
smarter
this
over
This is
time.
just what a dog is.
The thing is,
and
with
a cat, a dog and
yeah.
a cat, domesticated animals, all domesticated animals are just kind of this to some extent. Where
Right.
I think we've seen.
Yeah.
I don't want to say we've seen the cap of it, right? That would be silly to say. There's obviously no cap to the potential of a being's output, right? But you know, like, what is a dog now? What can a dog do now? What can a cat do now? What is a cow even?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
we
yeah.
have examples of this where, you know, we have shaped the evolution of other animals to meet our needs.
Yeah.
We've never tried this with apes before because logistically that's a nightmare.
They're dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
What
it's
if
like
we
the same
could
reason why we have them with
shape them into
zebras.
little butlers.
Listen.
You're proposing the plot of the third Planet of the Apes movie, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, like, I think, you know, we are capable of putting evolutionary pressure on things, just like other animals are capable of putting
Right, and,
evolutionary
like,
pressure
just-
on us.
Yeah, just by nature of, you know, we exist in
Cohabitation.
the Anthropocene. You know, the world is indelibly, permanently changed by human activity.
See, I much prefer the Cthulhu scene. But that's neither here nor there.
It's a simple word.
It's a simple word, folks.
But, you know, like, birds, pigeons in cities have adapted to live in the city and, like, have this weird lifestyle where they eat crumbs all day and have weird poop because of it. You know,
They eat
like
garbage and all talk like they're from Brooklyn.
Yeah, we've changed the world even indirectly, probably more indirectly than directly. I mean, hard to quantify either way, but yeah, it would take a long time to do what we did to dogs to apes, but we could do it. But I don't know if we could ever make like a truly independent, self-sufficient, sentient species other than us.
Do you think that they're not sentient?
Well, they're sapient is what I meant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they have a conception of self.
Yeah, no, they're sentient. I just meant sapient. To whatever extent that exists, I guess. But you know what I mean.
Do you think so? Okay, so like, do you think Kanzi's just like his intelligence, like the level to which he used his intellect? He's more of a product of his environment than he is like of the maybe.
I think all in.
of a bonobo.
Yeah, I think all intelligence has been, greatly misconstrued as something that, you're just born innately with. And I think more often
even
than not,
human intelligence.
Yeah, like
some of y'all are stupid as fuck.
Well, right, but like there's very few obstacles that like true environmental and like care can't overcome, even with like severely developmentally disabled people. I mean, yes, in some cases it's far too much to overcome, but human intellect is not something that is so easily like
quantified or
static, I guess, or what's the word I'm looking for? Stagnant? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's dynamic. It's very reliant on upbringing and
the
inputs you're receiving, and the care you're receiving, and like that's why like when right wing guys are so obsessed with IQ, they're like, oh well, you just don't have high enough IQ to understand it. It's like that's not true. You've just put yourself in this particular media ecosystem that...
And most of y'all got low-ass IQs.
Well, and that's the thing, like, when people do, like, it's so weird that the developed world, like America and Europe, all have super high IQs, while Haiti and Africa have such low IQs. It's like, because...
They're starving to death? We're starving them to death?
First of all...
We're killing them?
Less ideal environment, for one. The second of all, they aren't receiving the same standards of education as we are. Third of all, we are grading them based on a scale of our own, what we consider to be intelligence culturally.
Just say it, we're doing by Western European standards.
Yeah, like...
We're doing it by standards of whiteness.
Right, yeah.
Track her down. I've been looking at this picture of Kanzi for a little while. He really does have, like, uncle energy.
He does, doesn't he?
Like this is like your divorced uncle's like dating profile picture is that.
I've said this. I have said that exactly. I said this is the dating profile picture of your uncle on OkCupid.
Yeah. I'm glad we came to this thought independently.
It's also really beautiful that Kanzi suffered from male pattern baldness as an ape.
Just
right?
Like me, dude.
He's just like you, man.
I think he would have loved me. You put me in a room with Kanzi.
Dude, he probably would.
Dude, he would have loved us. He would have loved.
He would have had a fucking ball with us because I would have brought him. I would have brought him them cotton candy grapes. He'd love them shits.
He would have loved that, but
I teach him to dap me up.
Dude, so he could learn. He could learn that. Dude, teach his son to dap you up, and you'll be the cool uncle. Or keep it. Teach his nephew. I mean,
you think we can get in there? You think we can get in there to talk to the nephew?
They won't let us have physical contact, but like we could.
Well, how close can we get to him then?
Separated by a glass wall.
Oh man, do you know how cool it would be to have a picture next to the goddamn monkey?
Yeah, but the other thing is, this is something that we were gonna talk about the social media lady with is they're still trying to figure out and quantify to what extent does showing humans interacting with apes like in a personal close-up setting, to what extent does that negatively encourage the pet trade? Because, like, for example, one thing we were going to talk about is the Tiger King and Chimp Crazy. Both of those shows ostensibly against the pet primate trade. However, it showed the lady in her nice-ass bathrobe, cuddling a spider monkey. And despite everything in that show telling you that this is a bad thing to do, these are bad people.
Who would want to be curled up with their spider monkey?
Despite that,
bathrobe.
There was still a spike in spider monkey ownership where people saw that and that image stuck with them. So to what extent is it irresponsible to show?
Most of you motherfuckers are stupid as shit.
A little bit, yeah.
65% of Americans.
To what extent is it like irresponsible to show like humans interacting with apes, and that's something they had to...
When has irresponsibility ever stopped the pursuit of scientific progress?
True, but it's why they're super careful with the framing of all their photos. So one thing, I guess this is a good springboard to talk about the conference I went to, but rest in peace, Kanzi.
Tell us about your conference, Austin.
44 years young. God bless your soul. So...
Atlanta born.
Yeah, he was born
Southern
in Atlanta.
Boy. Southern boy.
Yeah.
He's keeping it Southern. One thing about human evolution that I found really fascinating that I wrote in my notes was that knuckle walking is not morphologically distinct. Therefore, knuckle walking isn't a specialization. It's a general means of locomotion. Humans are the ones that specialized into walking the way we walk. So that means that our common ancestor was a knuckle walker. So we, which is, when you think about it, like, oh yeah, duh, obvious. But, this is one of those things, the reason why we do like comparative psychology studies with Kanzi or any other great ape is so that we can tell like which features are unique to humans and which are unique to apes. We're finding all the time that there's not as many unique human traits as we thought there were, but walking upright or just not knuckle walking is a specialization that we developed, and that is one of the reasons why we are the way that we are.
To what extent is this confusing as an anthropologist? Because like we in a vacuum we appear to be the only great ape that is the way that we are, but in reality we are just simply the great ape that outcompeted the others in our genus who like would have had these same features.
It's super weird because the boundary between Neanderthals and humans isn't always clear either, because at one point it was like, oh well, one thing that distinctly separates humans and Neanderthal. People always say it's Neanderthals, not Neanderthals, but I like saying Neanderthals.
I don't give a shit. Neanderthal.
Yeah.
I like saying Neanderthal.
So, it was always like, oh, Neanderthals didn't have material culture. They didn't make, like, art or anything. But then, like...
That's been disproven, yeah.
But they found examples of, like, this is either, like, a beautiful accident or they were producing, material culture on purpose. And so, like, the boundary between human and Neanderthal is, like, not even clear, especially because we interbred with them, and, like, it worked, and, like, a huge chunk of the population has some Neanderthal DNA in them. Like you, Greg. That's
more than 49% of other people.
Yup.
Oh, wow.
But no, I mean, I think that would be unfair to say that Neanderthals didn't have material culture, because I
would say that because I have 0% Neanderthal DNA,
but that's why I look
they
at
were
you.
not human.
It's like not clear what makes us human, because everything is a gradation. There's no distinct separation between species. Like there's
all the taxonomy of all time has always been a little bit fake, a little bit bullshit.
Yeah, it's all just.
It's
like small,
exclusively for our benefit to categorize these things.
Yeah. But like Neanderthals, like I do feel like, and you tell me what the anthropological consensus is here, Austin. But I do feel like advanced tool making, right? Like the creation of like spears and advanced tools. Like we know that Neanderthals were capable of making advanced tools, at least functionally on par with like their Homo sapien counterparts at the time, for the most part. Like I do feel like having the ability to do that, they're also making art, right? Like, because, like, one cannot preclude the other. If you can make this advanced tool, it means you can think abstractly about what you're trying to accomplish, which I would assume would also mean that you can think abstractly about the world around you and then do your best to re-represent it.
Right, and, and we think about, like, how recent the oldest found art we've ever discovered is, and it's like, man, we really didn't even like figure this out, but we were still humans before we made art, or unless we want to come up with a new category. So it's very hard to like quantify.
Well, for a while they were doing Cro-Magnons, remember that?
Bro, yeah.
I mean, it's real easy to specify and do taxonomy on all these other little critters that aren't you. Right? But then when you gotta say, where do we draw the line at human, people start getting a little bit defensive about it. And they start, making less, clear decisions or clear, distinctions because, like, I gotta be special, I'm human.
Yeah, especially as we get closer to present. Like, in reality, Austin, like, Neanderthals are not. They're just us, but climactically evolved. More so to, like, bear with a harsher climate. Like, they're not us, because we were able to successfully interbreed with them.
Right, like
I wouldn't say that's, like, I understand, like, the making that distinction from a taxonomic perspective to say, okay, they have these physical attributes that are not quite as common in humans today, but even if you look at, like, in 100,000 years, if society was to collapse tomorrow, we lose all of our recorded knowledge, and then in 100,000 years, they're digging up our bones, right? Mm-hmm. And they dig up the bones of an Inuit, of someone who lives in northern Alaska. They're an Inuit. And then they go and they dig up the bones of someone who lived in fucking Nairobi, Kenya, right? Their bones, they're gonna be different. Because climactically, those people have evolved for different environments. Africans are taller, and they are more slender, so they can better dissipate heat. In the tropics, Inuits are shorter and stockier, so that, like, that's the re-evolution of those specific traits that led to a divergence between, like, what we would call a Neanderthal to what we would call a Homo sapien. We're just recreating it 100,000 years later. Like, do you think, in your opinion, if that were to happen, do you think that science today, as it is, would classify those two people as different? Without having any knowledge of the world culture that we all share, that we are all actually the same species?
It's hard to say, because that's, like, sort of like the whole basis of scientific racism is saying, like, oh, these people evolved under different circumstances, so therefore they're a different race. They're not going to say a different species because, you know, they can't prove that genetically.
Well, they can't do that, yeah.
It makes them sound like a crackpot.
But we also can't really prove genetically that, like, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals are different. They have such minute gene sequencing differences that all seem, for the most part, involved with the way their physical form interacts with the environment they lived in.
Right. And I'm sure there are some, like, there's no consensus. Like, there's some people who are like...
Did I just reinvent scientific racism by accident?
No. There's no consensus. Like, some people are, like, on board with there's really not even a real reason to classify Neanderthals as different species. But, like, bottom line is that, like, you know, it's... With scientific racism, it's... For a while, people thought that, like, oh, Neanderthals they're cavemen. They're the lesser, dumber version of us, and that's why we won out. And so, therefore, all of these, you know, all these people in every part of the world that isn't European, they're the ones that derived from Neanderthals. And then they found out, no, actually, Europeans were the ones who interbred with the Neanderthals way more than any other, you know, Homo group. And then they're like, oh, well, then the Neanderthals must have been the smart ones. So what it really all comes down to is there's this gradation of, like, the individual difference between you and your neighbor is probably greater, genetically speaking, in a very broad sense, than the genetic difference between you and someone in Kenya right now. You might be able to identify some morphological differences because of the climate pressures that have, you know, developed over time. But the scope of all living humans is currently within a certain range that, you know, nobody is really outside of that range enough to be considered non-human, if that makes sense. And to what extent we consider people human is obviously an entirely political question that we've resolved by saying every person alive is a human, but, you know, that gets into the whole scientific racism thing.
Except for South Koreans. Scientifically, they are less than human. They are outside the scope of humans, as Austin was describing.
Have you considered the subcontinent, my boy?
So, with that, we have...
Okay. Oh, speaking of, actually, I do need to make an official statement. Yeah, speaking of the subcontinent, I do need to make an official statement on the podcast. A couple of months ago, I said that Indians would become white. Folks, I just have to say, I really, really did not get that one right. Like, I really missed that one.
They do not like your ass.
They do not like our ass.
The minute they got rid of Vivek, they were like, we're going to get rid of all y'all.
Yeah.
Right.
Not a one of you. Also, for those of you at home waiting for a Red Connections episode between me and Austin, I don't even think I can put it out because everything we said in it was wrong.
Really? Was it
It
that
doesn't
bad?
make any sense. Yeah, I listened to it today. Every single one of our predictions was not only wrong, but in some cases far too conservative as to which we predicted the speed of events happening. Things have happened so quickly that in 1 month since we recorded that, everything we predicted has already happened.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Wait, no politics. We're talking about monkeys.
Yeah, put it out, but just record a disclaimer at the front saying that.
All of this is wrong.
Back to the beginning.
Back to this. So,
back to black.
With the monkeys.
Yeah.
Their intelligence versus our intelligence. Obviously, there are limitations to theirs because they spec'd into something different. Evolution.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
And, the same goes, like, from an this was the question I asked originally. From an anthropological perspective, it's strange because we are the last remaining, like, homogeneous animal still around, whereas all of our counterparts, like, they're gone. They've either been kind of subsumed into, like, the Homo sapiens genome, or they were outcompeted and they died off. Whereas, like, and this kind of goes for other great apes, but there's generally at least a few, like, distinct groups within them. Like, there's a few different kinds of gorillas, there's a few different kinds of orangutans, there's a few different kinds of chimps.
Yeah.
Things like that, where, like, it's easier to do kind of maybe a comparative study between them, whereas for us, we're it. And so when we're trying to identify, like, these things that make us uniquely human, I mean, I think there are the obvious ones, where the only thing left that walks on 2 feet, and we speak. But, like, what are some other things that, like, because you did say, and I was interested before, you said that there's more and more things that we find that are not unique to us, that we thought were previously, like what? Like, what kind of other things?
Empathy, for example. Like, we thought empathy was a uniquely human trait, and we see what we consider to be empathy or altruism replicated in experiments all the time, and it's like, the only defense against that is like, nah, man, it's like something you like feel deep inside you, that doesn't count. And it's like, oh, well, the rat is just helping that other helpless rat because it wants something from it. And it's like, well, couldn't you say the same thing of humans, where we only help other people because we need other people's help to survive? And then it gets really complicated, because, like, maybe altruism doesn't exist at all, maybe humans aren't unique, but clearly something is making us different. We made skyscrapers, dude.
Yeah. We made cars.
We made cars.
Yeah, like, we are very unique in that sense.
But it's just so hard to quantify, like, what specifically happened.
What do you think it is? What's your thought? If you could try and answer the question, how would you answer?
I feel like it's got to be something to do with language as a means of preserving knowledge, because
I think that's the kind of the same conclusion we came to last time.
Even, like, tribes that don't practice spoken language, they still have ways of conveying stories.
What tribes don't practice spoken language?
I think it was, like, the Paraha tribe in the Amazon.
They speak. They have the least complex language.
Oh. Yeah, no, you're right. I guess it is still spoken.
Every human speaks.
So I guess... Well, with the exception of, like, nonverbal people, I guess. But see, there's so many, like,
No, I mean, I like, feral children do not speak because it's a social.
Yeah,
right, like,
you need more than one
to speak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's like...
I mean, you don't need to be taught to speak. Babies babble. We are born speaking. It's that if you have no one to speak to...
Yeah.
You lose
don't
that.
Develop the rules.
Yeah, you lose that.
You have 7 to 10 years to learn language, and then...
Yeah, if you put 2 children in the woods, by themselves, they'll be speaking to each other, just not in a language that we would be able to understand or probably even translate. It would just be, they would be...
Or even, like, a language proper.
Yeah, it would be more a system of sound. It would be much closer to what the original human language would have been, which is kind of like babbling with sounds that have meaning that evolves over time.
I guess the main thing is that we have a way of sort of archiving knowledge through speech that is more efficient than just, whatever other intelligent species have got going on. Like whales, dolphins, elephants. They're pretty good. They're no humans, though. they're not quite
skyscrapers down
there.
Yeah,
like there is something special there. Because, I mean... We were doing, like, monumental architecture, right? And I think, like, calling it monumental architecture as, like, that's all humans were doing, I think that's a misnomer. I think the reason that we're calling it when we call it monumental architecture, like, we look at, like, a Stonehenge, or we look at the things that are even far older than Stonehenge that are out there, it's just that we built them out of giant chunks of granite. they're still there. I'm sure we were building homes of some sort and normal buildings of some sort. But we were doing that without written language. We were doing that without anybody writing down, here's how you do this. Right? That all had to be passed orally.
Exactly. Because written language comes after spoken language. Written language is not built into us the way spoken language is built into us.
And written language, I would argue, comes with urbanization.
Yeah. And then there's a whole debate of
even
what
if you look at, look at North America, because it's a very good example, I think. So in the far southern part of the continent, in Mexico and Central America, those societies developed written language because they were very densely urbanized. Like, at least that's my idea. Is like they're very densely urbanized, and so systems of administration required record keeping that was too expansive for like one guy to remember for his whole life. Whereas in the far less urbanized, like in the Appalachian Mountains on the eastern coast, the eastern woodlands cultures, they're far less urbanized. There's a lot less. This is not to say they're not complex societies. They are. There's a lot less complex administrative, quote-unquote paperwork that needs to be handled to maintain the functioning of that society.
Right, and I think it comes down to just this is also a huge anthropological debate of how much of culture is shaped by environment, and it's we don't know, and it's very frustrating because no one can seem to really get to the bottom of anything and then replicate that exactly in another culture without being contradicted by something. And it's very frustrating.
I also think one of the more complicated aspects of answering that question from a historical perspective is that all of the dominant world cultures, right? Whether that be, out of China, out of Africa, out of Europe, out of South America, out of Central America, out of North America, the problem is that they all are fundamentally the same in that they are all river valley urbanization based. Like Mesopotamian culture, Egyptian culture, West African cultures, European, Chinese, South American, Central American, they're all based around urbanizing around a water source where you farm. And all of the things outside of those areas were subsumed by those original cultures. If you think about it in that way, the Mesopotamian cultures conquered all of Central Asia, and then Egypt conquered all of them, and then that gives rise to those kind of secondary and tertiary groups that conquered them from there. But there's no. The only thing that I think might be a different, what defines that is there's only a few outliers, and those would be the steppe cultures of Central Asia that are not based around that same thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a huge debate in Mayanology, I guess it's called, where the Spanish delineated a classical period for the Maya, where they used to be a great civilization, but then it all crumbled. What happened? What happened was that they did build these huge urban centers around a central political figure, but in most cases, people became politically dissatisfied with that central figure and abandoned the urbanization for that reason, and just not always voluntarily, but sometimes voluntarily just left and either joined other cultures like Aztec, or they, spread out into just rural living where, written language wasn't nearly as important, or centers of agriculture weren't as important. And it wasn't necessarily that they devolved or they got less complicated. It's that they chose to live in a way that was more egalitarian for the time, because it was either that or live under a despot.
What separates them from their neighbors to the north, like the Aztecs? Although the Mayans and the Aztecs, common misconception, they didn't really live at the same time. But they're the Olmecs and the Toltecs were up there. What separates why the difference? Whereas those people didn't abandon urbanization every time they were politically dissatisfied. What's the evolution, or not evolution? Well, kind of. What's the societal pressure there that says let's re-agrarianize rather than urbanize?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because a lot of people for a time were it's because of the drought conditions in Mesoamerica. It wasn't consistent enough, but there was evidence of these massive cities persisting throughout drought periods. It's just something happened where maybe the drought period triggered a political crisis where people just became dissatisfied with the political leadership. And I think that speaks to maybe a sort of a science of human society wherein when power accumulates around certain resources, perhaps it can lead to conditions wherein a subservient class and a ruling class develop
come into class conflicts.
Yeah, where there's some sort of like conflict between the classes, and that
after
and
the
that
lower
leads
class
to,
maybe develops like a consciousness.
Yeah, and that like maybe leads to them like purposefully breaking off from the ruling class and doing something
Tell me
different.
more about
You could construct like a whole like theory.
There's an ideology
around this or something, man.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. At least.
The immortal science.
Should we go run through the conference real quick? Some fun things I learned.
Yeah. Run us through it. Tell us about it. Tell us about how there were tons of women there and you couldn't talk to any of them.
Yeah, let's actually start there. Let's start there. What was the ratio of
it was
eligible single women to you?
Okay, I would say it was like mostly women at the conference.
Including you or excluding you?
Maybe like 20% of them were butch lesbian, and like
you have a shot with butch lesbian.
40% of them were like married women with children.
Those also should stay in for you.
You get like you get the butch lesbians. You get the butch lesbians. You get maybe 5% of the married women because they're like swingers.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think
this isn't about me, all right.
Okay, and then you said the ratio was like mostly. Like, are we talking like 7?
I'd say it was like 20-80.
Like, you don't even got to worry about like the whole being gay thing. Maybe
stop for a second
because there's so many. Women.
It was a lot of women.
It's 20-80.
It's a very
40%
woman-dominated field.
Are in his world. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, come on, man.
Nick's mom called me Rizless.
You are!
Like, you...
people aren't coming to this conference.
Yes, they are!
Yes, they are!
Going. The only reason anybody goes to industry conferences is to get drunk and get laid.
I don't know if that's true.
What do you
That
mean?
is
That's
true.
not why they're there. You saw Oppenheimer. They were doing that shit in 1932.
Back to the academic content of this conference.
Yeah, because clearly you didn't learn any anatomical content right here. So let's keep going.
Shut up. So, one interesting thing is that I don't know why you guys would know this, but
we've been doing the Monkey Podcast for almost half a decade, man.
Yeah, well, maybe you would know this. So, a lot of the time in the wild, or just generally, monkeys will take a single bite of a delicious fruit and then throw the rest of the bunch away.
They're just like us.
Yeah, they'll just be like, ugh. And so part of the reason for that is it's assumed that for capuchins, they like red figs, but wasps detect fruits to lay larvae in using the chemical in the red pigment. So they probably take a bite of the red fig. They see that there's wasp larvae in there and throw the entire bundle away because that's been colonized by a wasp. So they're not just being wasteful, they're detecting that there's a bug in there, which is not good news for me because the gibbons were like taking a single bite of fruit and then tossing it, and then it would land on the ground and everyone in my group would be like, oh dude, they gave us some fruit, and we'd like start eating the fruit. So anyways, moving on from that.
What?
Yeah.
Where?
They would... In Thailand, the gibbons would
You were eating random fucking fruit that a monkey had bitten out of?
Yeah, look, listen.
It was the bunch. It was the exact same fruit.
It wasn't the exact same fruit. It was the bundle.
But the monkey tongue was all up in there. That gibbon tongue was all up in there.
Look,
what are you doing, man?
You do some crazy things in the field, man. All I'm saying. They had us eating egg noodles for 3 days straight.
You'll do that, but you won't talk to a girl in a convention center.
True.
So, this other note I wrote is just me being really sad that bird labs have so much resources dedicated to analyzing bird calls, like super like specific, like they can get down to the like individual variations and like glottal stops or whatever. And monkeys, we don't have any of that shit.
Do birds have glottals?
No, I'd probably not.
I don't think they have glottals.
Yeah, I'm lying. I'm just
glottal's
saying.
not a thing. It's an object marker.
Wow. Good job catching the joke, Greg.
I'm gonna kill myself. Batman.
Point being that there's one undergraduate trying to train the Cornell bird laboratory software to work with monkey vocalizations, and it didn't work because they don't have the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars dedicated to fucking bird calls that bird people have.
For some reason.
Yes, I am jealous. Thank you.
Why did bird people get all that money?
I don't know. Bird people are crazy, man. They're nuts. Another thing that was really cool and goes back to your point about like monkeys being raised in specific environments. One person found that captive primates or primates kept in labs have larger joints, like stronger bones, because their steady diet and less strenuous exercise allows their body to... It has so many spare minerals and shit that it just like puts it wherever. And so like their bones get really strong and healthy and get really big and strong and so on and so forth. So what are you writing numbers for? What does this mean?
The numbers, Greg. What do they mean?
Greg just wrote a 3.
I mean, this could be somewhat some evidence into what Greg was talking about earlier about, like, hey, if we just take care of the monkeys forever, will they get smarter and stronger and better and
It's
cooler?
like maybe some of that surplus energy will go to their brain development. It's hard to say, but maybe. Although, they also get like fat alongside that. You know what? Big bone theory proven correct.
Yeah, I'm not.
Your bones really do get bigger. Thank you.
I had to write that backwards. That's why I drew the 3 so I could figure out.
It was
if
still
the camera
backwards.
was
It didn't
reversing.
work.
It's still backwards.
No, it's not backwards now. This is right.
Well, I'm looking at the
yeah,
fucking... Do you think I don't know what English looks like?
It's not backwards.
It's
for me.
backwards.
It's backwards.
It's backwards for me, not
it's
for you.
Backwards for me, right?
Maybe
now.
you're
I
mirroring.
wrote it.
We are.
I wrote it backwards.
Just write
so
it normal. Just write it normal.
But then it would be
write
backwards.
it normal, Greg.
It is backwards on
Write
our
it normal.
Greg has scrawled "No bitches Austin" on a notepad,
And he spent a long time doing it backwards because the camera is flipped for him because
but not
of his,
for us.
but not for us.
So it flopped. I'm sorry to say it flopped.
But now it's backwards for me.
But
See,
now
but
we
now
can
it,
read it.
now
But
it
now
makes
we can
perfect
read
sense
it.
to me.
Hold
Hold it on. That's
backwards.
that's going in blackmail. Hold that up again.
Wait, the backwards one or the right one?
Both of them.
Yeah, both of them. Do both of them, please.
Okay, one second.
Yeah, one second. One moment.
One second. Where's the blackmail?
It's right there.
Don't say right there to me. Okay, now just the backwards one. Oh, good, great facial expression there.
Okay. So, next up, there was a undergrad in Utah. There's some people from BYU there, and I avoided them. No offense, but I did avoid them because I was scared of Mormons. No, but there was an undergrad at somewhere in Utah who was doing a research project on the depiction of primates in movies and had like this list of all these movies with monkeys in them, and I was like, dude, that's like my whole thing. Oh yeah. Another interesting thing about orangutans was that the unflanged males, as in the incel males that don't get laid, allegedly.
The Chud Jack male.
Yeah, the Chud orangutans accounted for 15.6% of captive breeding of orangutans. And it was interesting.
I thought they couldn't fuck.
No, they can fuck, but...
They often get too drunk to fuck.
No. So, the thing is, in the wild, female orangutans typically only mate with flanged males, the big old cheek pad boys.
Why do you keep saying flanged like that?
Because they got flanges. They're
No,
flanged.
he's saying flanged.
That's his little buffalo accent.
Flange, whatever.
That's his little northern accent.
So, but the thing is, in the wild, unflanged males do reproduce, but the female orangutans do not want to. Typically, is what happens.
Okay. But in captivity, that's not the case? Is that what you're trying to get
In captivity, it's hard to tell if it was willing or not. But
in captivity, we're less willing to admit it's rape.
Well, because
does that just mean the researcher's not willing to admit that the monkeys might be raping each other?
Well, no, because a lot of these examples were from before we had like really stringent breeding practices.
Before there was Title
And so
IX
it was
for
like,
monkeys.
before we were giving them all birth control. And so, like, they would just...
Were we not?
For a time, we weren't giving them birth control.
When?
Like, the 20th century.
That's only 25
Like, the whole
years
20th
ago.
century, basically.
That's crazy. So we were just getting a bunch more tests.
We weren't giving people birth control in the 20th
So,
century.
but, like, also... They knew the fathers were unflanged, so it's hard to... well, I guess it was because it would happen, like, within a pair, but either
this
way...
is actually evidence that Greg's whole theory of ape evolution is wrong, because actually, in captivity, the women are all fucking the beta males. The beta cuck losers.
Yeah, but how do you think
We're actually going to make
we're
all
not
the apes
strong,
stupider.
We're not fast.
Maybe
bald.
the unflanged male was just really funny.
Austin justifying this to himself right now. What's up?
So they accounted for 15. They were basically 15% of the fathers of orangutans born in captivity. In one case at the Portland Zoo, the orangutan Kali developed phalanges after having his first son.
Ooh.
So the same case for the San Diego Zoo orangutan E2.
He just needed to get a little strange.
He got his wings.
He had 3 sons, and at some point in the process of having those 3 sons, he developed the phalanges. So it's unclear, but it's like, clearly it is happening that the person I was talking to was like, yeah, they wouldn't tell me if they were like intentionally only breeding like flanged males or not nowadays, and so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of stuff that the zoo's just like, you know, how do you get an email thread started about that, you know? But
can you tell me about your ape fucking policies, please?
Yeah.
Please. I promise I'm not a pervert.
The point being that there are at least 2 case studies of the 15% of unflanged male sirens developing cheek pads after having their son. So maybe that's part of the hormonal shift that happens, but also probably not. There's so many different theories. Dichromatism, partial color blindness, is actually developed in New World monkeys because it's advantageous for helping monkeys see camouflaged fruits, or at least that's probably what's happening. Because all Old World monkeys are trichromatic. We see full color vision. But because, like, the fruits...
Are we considered Old World monkeys?
Yes.
Hell
Are
yeah.
we actually?
Well, yeah, we evolved in Africa.
That's so cool.
Look at us go.
So the
Look
New
at us.
World monkeys, like capuchins and howler monkeys and spider monkeys, the fruits are a lot better camouflaged in the Americas. So they
Why is that?
actually... I don't know. I don't know. It just happened.
I have a great joke.
They
but I can't say
developed
it.
partial color blindness to be able to detect those fruits better. Which, why does that help them detect fruits better? I'm actually not entirely sure, but it works. I'm just going to rapid fire through the rest of this list here. So, one thing I learned is that most firstborn chimps, as in the firstborn chimp of a mother chimp, dies before age 2, and the mother chimps learn their lesson, and typically the subsequent children all make it past that age 2 marker. It's sort of like they all have like a trial run of having a baby, but they all die before they hit 2, and then it's like, okay, don't drop the baby on its head, right? So back to what I was saying, one other interesting thing I learned is that howler monkeys are actually, because they're so loud, the Maya used them to find water sources, because whenever the howler monkeys would find a water source, they would start screaming for other howler monkeys to hear, and they would also know a drought was coming if the forest was too quiet. So that was really cool. They still do it to this day. Like, that's a method they use.
Oh, that's cool. You know, kind
Ain't no
of.
howler monkey
Sometimes
screaming
when
in
we're
the
sitting in this call, because you guys are on one camera now, I feel like I'm your therapist, and you guys are in a very abusive gay relationship.
Who's abusing who?
Well, clearly you're abusing Austin, because you are sitting there relaxed and composed, and Austin always looks like if a noise is too loud, he's going to start crying.
So, moving on. This is a funny note that I wrote. It was just it was a poster I saw that said higher exposure to prenatal testosterone causes more facial asymmetry in adulthood.
If your shit's ugly,
If your shit's ugly, you were
My shit's fucked
too
up.
mask.
I realized this side of me, I can move it around a lot more than I can this. It's like I had a stroke.
Yeah, brother, you had too much prenatal testosterone. That's why you're bald too.
Well, that we already knew.
So, This was the really cool one that I listened to the president of the organization give. I explained this to Chandran, but seals transmitted tuberculosis from continent to continent by circulating around Antarctica and spread it to animals in South America, who then spread it to people in South America before the Europeans arrived. So there were tuberculosis.
What killed them all?
Well, it was a different strain of tuberculosis. The Europeans had a nastier strain of tuberculosis. The tuberculosis still killed them, but there were pre-European contact tuberculosis strains because the seals.
Man, we should have let me go back in time. I go back in time with just like a crate of fucking vaccines. We could change the trajectory of the entire
Giving
world.
fucking Tecumseh a crate full of ARs.
I'm not giving Tecumseh shit. I'm going back and I'm making sure that the Inca Empire survives to the modern day. Better start learning Kipu, buddy. We're shipping you off to the Peruvian League.
There's an animal called the flying lemur that isn't a lemur or a primate, but it's actually pretty closely related to primates. For some reason, I just didn't know about these guys. They're called, like, colugos. Google them.
They're like a quokka? How do I spell colugo?
Colugo.
See, it's not that crazy, though.
They're called flying lemurs,
This
but
is
they're not
bringing me a
actually
Colugo
lemurs or
compact
primates.
stroller.
No, it's Colugo.
I know. Shut up.
Oh, that is a baby stroller brand.
Yeah. These guys are cool as fuck.
Yeah.
Yo, because they're not apes, which means we don't have any morals about them, can I have one of these as pet?
Probably not.
Can I?
But I don't know. Are they endangered?
Can I get one?
They're probably gonna like give you a disease, man.
Yeah.
What are they gonna give me that I don't already like have?
I don't know, man. What's their IUCN Red List status?
That's what I'm
Are they
looking
endangered?
I mean, endangered.
Vulnerable.
Sorry, can't have them, buddy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Downlisted to least concern in 2008.
Oh, okay, never mind. It's
Good for
fine.
them.
Who cares?
Dude, people eat them.
People probably eat them. So,
I got a friend who's really excited for when we're all gonna start eating bugs.
What?
Do they like to eat bugs?
No, she's
Colugo
totally vegan.
pet.
But she's just like really fascinated by the idea that eventually we're gonna run out of protein sources. We gotta eat bugs.
Oh yeah, people have these as pets.
They seem like a pain.
I actually changed my mind. They're horrifically fucking ugly.
Yeah, no, they're
they're really freaky looking, man.
Yeah,
They
I don't
have
know why you want them
weird
as a pet.
dick and ball faces.
So the last two little notes I wanted to go over from this conference that I found interesting is that sometimes, it's a little rare, but sometimes the siblings or just other neighboring primates, and maybe in the social group, will adopt a baby primate if the mother dies. Like a foster parent. That's cute.
How nice
Of different species?
I don't know if it's of other
different species they'll kill and eat.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it happens. It just maybe hasn't been observed. At least not.
What
by
if we
the
throw a
particular
baby
study.
chimp in with a bunch of bonobos? Are they going to kill it?
No,
They're
I don't
very
think they
similar.
would. I feel like
I
there's
think
enough.
a bunch of chimps would kill a baby bonobo. But I don't think
Well, there's
baby
also
bonobo,
the
a baby
problem-
chimp would be killed
There's
by
also the
bonobo.
problem of infanticide, where they kill the babies so that the females aren't dedicating their energy to raising another chimp's son. Then he can impregnate them, and then they dedicate their energy to raising his son, which is a very roundabout way of not.
Do they feel shame? You know how, like you see, like like the cat, right? Like the cat will fall off of something, and then they'll be all they feel shame, like they get shy, like they're embarrassed that they did something.
Oh,
I don't know.
Do the monkeys feel? Do they feel shame? Like if a chimp trips and falls when they're walking, right? I don't know how often they do that because they seem pretty sure-footed. But if they trip and fall, like, do they get embarrassed?
Probably. It's hard to tell what's going on in their heads, but I mean, if you see like some of the beef that they have
Not
at these
much.
sanctuaries, there's like a whole
Like long running beef.
Dude, I told you before, I saw like one female chimp literally from the very top of the enclosure. This is a 3-story enclosure. Do like a WWE power bomb on this other chimp, like from the top rope, jumps and slams her head into the ground, like on the way down. That's
Didn't
not
phase
only
her?
premeditated. That's like crazy drama.
It's like suicidal.
Something happened there. You don't just do that for no reason. But I'd assume they do feel something similar to embarrassment because, like, they laugh when things are funny.
That's gotta be terrifying.
I mean, they don't laugh the same way. They do, like, it's more of like a breathy, like, kind of thing. But they have favorite keepers where...
Like a chimp Nick Mullen somewhere out there making them all happy.
There was this one lady that all the chimps liked, and one of the guy keepers, like, as a joke, pretended to get into an argument with her, and all the chimps started freaking out and throwing actual poop at him. So, you know, they've got a complex inner world.
Kanzi, when he was really fat, kind of looked like Stavros.
A little bit.
I'm going to look for the pictures of that, and then I'm going to put it on the Twitter.
Well, don't compare him to... Don't post fat Kanzi online. That was a different him.
Why?
He got Ozempic. He got Ozempic'd out. He doesn't like you posting those.
I gotta get one of those t-shirts. You gotta get one of those t-shirts, Chandra, to wear to the gym.
Body by Ozempic.
That says, like, I am on Ozempic.
So,
What's your excuse?
last two notes. Vocalization, like screaming at other primates, is in territorial encounters a much... this was mostly just because it was useful to my thesis. Screaming at other apes is generally... It saves way more energy than actually getting into a fight, which is like, you know, how dudes will yell at each other but not actually beat the shit out of each other.
Come on, man. Come on,
do something. That's like the territorial vocal encounter that's saving you energy from having to actually fight a guy. And last thing, this one was really interesting. This was from a Malagasy researcher. She found human presence through ecotourism in Madagascar actually deterred predators in the ecotourism zones and increased the lemur population because there's not a lot of lemur predators, but whatever predators there were, they got scared off by all the people visiting the lemurs there, and that increased the lemur population. So actually, in some cases, ecotourism is straight up good for primates, which, I mean, I guess normally it is, but unless you're, like, sneezing on a gorilla, but, you know. All right, that's all I had, though.
Okay. All right, well, I think this was an actually good episode.
It was a fun episode. I liked it.
Probably going to edit that.
I got to just talk for a while.
Yeah.
Last thing before we sign off is that one thing I really loved about Kanzi was that he always had that look on his face where it's like, when the guy is trying to convince you to try almond milk for the first time and he's like waiting for you to drink it, he's always got that look on his face. Mm-hmm. It's very beautiful.
They should put Kanzi in some almond milk commercials.
They should.
And you know what? You're grateful for that face because you have a sip of the almond milk. You're like, damn, this shit goes. This shit's good. You're so right, Kanzi.
Shit, all right. I'm a big oat milk guy. Hey, before we go, I just want to say, did you guys, just so we can, because we do it every episode and we have to touch on it, right? At least once. Did you guys see that they put a random reporter from the Atlantic?
I
did see that. I feel like they had to have done that on purpose for some stupid reason.
There's
do
no
we
way
live in the funniest / stupidest timeline?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Everyone, subscribe to the Patreon, please! We need money.
Oh, yeah. Please, we gotta pay for Austin's everything.
Yeah.
We gotta pay for my everything, dog. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.